Welcome and thank you for checking out my video. This is a video on Paper2d, how to create the sprites, how to create the background, the levels, the platforms you'll be jumping up onto, how to use a weapon. In our case, it'll be a ball weapon that we're going to use. It's going to shoot at some platforms based off of where the mouse click goes. And you'll be able to jump, run, stand there, do a couple of different neat things. So let's see what we're going to be working on here. So here's my level. As you can see, we got a character. Ignore the animation, please. It's a GIF file I got off of the internet that I broke down and made into sprites. I'll show how we do that later. But I can shoot the ball weapon here wherever my mouse is clicking. As you can see that there. The ball bounces off of some of these other platforms, whereas some of the other platforms are destroyable there. Also, when it destroys a platform, it also destroys the ball that hit it. That way the ball doesn't continue to bounce on elsewhere, and it bounces off of different things, and based off of where you're clicking depends the volume or the velocity, as well as the angle at which the ball goes. So if I click up higher, it's not got much forward velocity, but it does have a lot of upward momentum, so the ball goes higher but doesn't go as far. Be it if I click way over here, the ball goes far, but it only goes up a little because I'm not that far up from the point at which the character shoots the ball from, which is about right here on the character, and I'll show how to set all that up. The other thing that's nice in here is that, like you see me clicking over here above this small little platform here, nothing's happening. I have a range on it to where I can only click but a certain range. You have to be within a certain range of the target to be able to set it up and everything. So let's take a look at what I did here and let's get started on it. First thing we're going to do is we're going to bring my Unreal Engine over here. We're going to launch a new one. I'm using 4.6.1 as that's the engine I know the most. I don't think much has changed between 4.7.3 and 6.1, but I just prefer to use 6.1. Load, let it load. Alright, we're going to load a new project. Now, we could use the 2D side scroller, which as you see this image over here, it's a nice little template. It would have our character walking and all that other good stuff, but we're going to do this from scratch. So we're going to do it without any starter content, because all the content we're going to use, we are going to place into the level ourselves. So we're going to call this Paper Tutorial Shooter. This is what I'm going to name this project. The folder you want to save it into, that's all up to you, wherever you want to save your projects at. So let's create the project. And I'm sorry for the slow load times. My computer's being the pain in the butt today, it seems. Alright, so here's our level. Okay, at the moment you can see that it's all a 3D world and everything's all good here. So we're going to take everything and delete it out, all but the player start. Yes, I want to delete that. Alright, so now we have just this. Okay, now mind you, Paper2d game does not work on the y-axis, so the y is going to be your depth. So everything's going to be x or z, which is along the blue line here and along this X line right here. So if we wanted, we could just simply set it to front, and we could work off of this graph. The blue line being the Z, up and down, red being the X, left and right. So first we need to do a few things. So let's create a textures folder. We need to create a sprites folder. And we need to create a blueprints folder. There may be others that we need to create later, but for the moment, that's all we need. So let's get us some textures. Okay. I already have them downloaded, but you can go anywhere you want on your computer or on your internet and get them. Let's see, we need our ball. And sometimes Unreal is finicky about transferring things over. Now you can do as I'm doing here. You can just grab it, drag it over. It does import itself. The other way you can import things is by clicking on this import thing here. You see right here on the import. you can go over to your wherever your stuff is saved. In my case, it's under Assets, under Sprites, and then you could pick out what you're wanting. Like, I need to update this or input this one here next, so it imports. And I also need to import this one. Now with this, we're going to get this. This texture is not a power of 2. What power of 2 means is 128 by 128, 256 by 256, 512 by 512, 1024 by 1024, so on and so forth. Those are powers of 2. Unreal Engine prefers to have those. Otherwise, it won't be able to make bitmaps, but seeing how this file that we're importing is only going to be for a background, as you can see, here's just the background of our level. That's not really going to matter much. Okay. So we can go ahead and save that. The other thing we need to bring in is let's see, we need to bring in something to use for a platform. Okay, so we're going to bring that in. Alright, so now Control Save. You need to save the level. So Paper2d is what I'm going to save mine, just to have it save. Alright, so now we have Paper2d, all of our stuff is saved. Okay. So now we have all these beautiful things. Now notice that when you import a sprite sheet, sometimes you get all these fuzzy little lines and stuff like that. That's okay. The reason why you have those is because with the alpha channel of a PNG file, if you go into like Photoshop and you make this, the PNG file has the alpha already stored in it, but the area behind the character, you may have a default color there, or you may have nothing. It just be a blank grid. If it's a blank grid, you get this effect, but it will not affect the actual sprites. And you see the same thing here in this one. So what we're going to do first is we're going to get our character sprites out. Now, we could create a sprite based off of it, and we would create it, say, character underscore sprite underscore 001, for example. It pulls up, and you can see here, okay, all of the characters are there, each individual separate of each other, okay. But we don't want to do that, because the way I set this particular graph up is everything is in a block. It's in a set size block of a certain value, which, if I remember correctly, was something random, but each one is lined up, so if I wanted to pull them all apart, I could. But we don't need to do that with this one. So what we're going to do is we're going to delete that back out. Let's go ahead and delete it. What we're going to do is we're going to right click on it, go to Sprite Actions. Now, if you're using an older model or an older version of Unreal, this does still work. I've seen it work on as far back as 4.4. You just have to find the locations because they may be in a different location. But Sprite Actions, extract sprites. I'm going to extract all the sprites. Okay, so here are all of our sprites. And as you can see, they're nice, they're individual, they're just the actual thing. Ignore some of the white clippings on it. I'm not very good at cutting out objects. But that's not what we're here for. So, and you can see right here that we have all of this, all of our sprites that match up with this. Now, you have these three other options up here besides just this view one. If we click over here on the edit source region, zoom in so we can see, we see all these nice little beautiful boxes around each of the characters. Those boxes are what tell us what portion of that sprite sheet is being examined to find a sprite. So if I was to take this piece here and slide it inward and then look at it, we see only half of our sprite. And we don't want that. So let's just go ahead and go up here to edit, go to undo modification. Alright, and save it again. So now we have the actual character there. And we have all of that here. Now there are a few that I'm going to delete out because we're not going to use them. And those are this one and this one, because I'm not using a slash attack, which is what I had that originally thought out to be. So we can save it. Okay. Now, we're going to do the same thing with our ball here. We're going to pull it out and extract the sprites. Now, this one only came as one. Now, the reason for it is, if you look at how closely knit everything here is, it's hard for the program to determine how, like, what space to grab for these for the balls, okay? But at the same time, it's fairly easy for us to figure it out because 4 by 4, each one of these blocks right here is 256 by 256. Okay, we have one circle per block, so we know that we have to pick out some numbers here. So, you know, we can go into here, we can go view source range, and we could do 256 by 256, and it highlights our first square there. So we go back over here to view. Now we have just the one ball, and that's our thing. You know, we can do that for the other 15 balls. However, there is an easier way to do this. Okay, we can take and we're going to go ahead and move this over to the Sprites folder just so we can see it separate from everything else. Now, we're going to duplicate it. Okay, just keep with the ball sprite thing. Select both of those, Control W. Select all of those, Control W, and then do it one more time. Now, that gives us our 16 sprites for our ball. Now, the other thing that we can do here that's going to make separating these easy is if we click on these, we see 16 sprites, okay? But they're all of the exact same spot. Well, why is that? Because we duplicated the main one that we made, which was the first spot. So we could go through and we could set each one of them up to, you know, wherever the location is, but we're going to do this a lot easier. We're going to highlight all of them. We're going to go down here to Asset Actions. It could be in the base menu, however you have things set up, or if you have an older version or a newer version. But you're looking for Property Matrix. Okay, and we get this nice little feature right here. Okay. Now, what this will allow us to do is, if you see right here where it says Source Dimension, okay, remember in the sprite thing that we had, okay, we had a source dimension right here. All right, we did it 256 by 256 to make our nice little white box around the sprite. So if we took that and we changed it to 250, changed the source UV to 256 by 256, notice where the box changes to. Now this source UV point is registered off of this top corner right here. Okay, so whatever you have this set to, that top corner is going there. So if we set this to 768, we get the fourth one down here on the bottom row to the second one over. Because it's 256 over, so it's one square, and 76 down. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 squares down. Okay, 4 lines if you count this one as, you know, 0, 256, 512, 768, and then 1024. But that gets annoying and tiring. So we're going to do all of that. We'll have to reopen it because apparently I closed it. But in their property matrix here. Okay, so we're going to highlight our first 4. Okay, and over here under Sprite, we see where we have Source UV and Source Dimension. Well, we don't want to mess with Source Dimension, so we can leave that alone. But we want our X value on this to be 0, and we want our Y value to be 256. So notice, these 4 sprites, actually I copied too many. Okay, these 4 sprites here are all on a Y of 256. Okay. Actually, no, this should be 0. My apologies. That should be 0. Because the point's in the top corner. So 0, 0. Alright, so the next set of sprites, these are going to be 256. Okay. They're going to stay 0. Now, we'll alter the X here in a minute, so just bear with. But right now, we're doing the Ys. Okay. So we select the next 4. These are going to be 512. Then we select the next 4, and these are going to be 768. Now notice, nothing we did went to 1024. Reason being, again, it's in the top left-hand corner of that box. Not the bottom, not the middle, not the top other corner. That's just how it is, okay? So now we copy the last one of each one. Whoops. Now, You see I just selected everything. If you hit Control instead of Shift, you'll select just individual pieces. Okay. So now all of these are 768. Okay. Because we want our X-axis to be on 768 and our Y-axis to be on whatever we have random or have set up there. And then we do the same thing for these, and we make these 512. And then we do the same thing for these, and we make these 256. So now, you see this little star here? That means these need to be saved, so we can save them. Okay. Right. Now, if in the event, say like that background image I pulled in that we were going to use for a background, if we needed to change the size of that to an actual power of 2, we could do this right here with our pixels per unit. 2.56 is actually equivalent to 256 pixels, okay? If we ever needed to change the size, then this is where we would do it, right here. Now, I know the size that this ball needs to be for this particular tutorial, so I'm going to go ahead and plug that in. That's 5.12 or 512, if you want to look at it that way. Our pivot mode is going to be in the center, so everything we do with this ball is going to be in the center of the ball. Okay, so we have everything selected. We need to select everything. Make sure you either select everything or nothing. Okay, that's the only way this works. If you don't select everything, then all of the balls are never going to match up, and you won't see anything looking right. Alright, so now let's go back and look. If we look here, you can see that our ball actually has all of its frames and that it is spinning. Now, something else to consider. Once you do this, go into the view mode and just double check, make sure that everything is what it is. Because in some of the other models, when you do this, you actually have a problem, and it'll come across the top. It'll zoom in here. It'll come across these 4, then drop down to hit this one and come back. And if that's the case, once you put in your naming convention, then it'll be just fine, and you'll just go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to 16. And once you have that, make sure you go ahead and save it. As you can see here, we have the nice little ball spinning and having all nice sorts of fun. Okay, so now we have our ball sprites. So now we need to put these into a flip book. So we need to make our flip book. All of the Paper2d stuff operates via flip books for animation. If you were to take a regular book or a pad of paper or something, just kind of pull your thumb on the end of it and pull it up and then let it slide out, and you see all of it, the pages flipping, that's the same thing as a flip book. That's how our animations are ran. So we're going to select all of these, right click on them, create flip book. And for some reason it created 3 of them. I do not know why it does that. So just delete 2 of them. Go in, go ahead and delete all of the frames. Okay. This is something I prefer doing, but you can go in and manually input all of the frames you want. I just highlight all of my frames and drag them over here to my timeline. Now you can see some of them are all messed up, so you got to go in and you got to fiddle with them and make sure what's right. You can do that by going over here, or actually let's do this. Let's delete them back out. Okay, we're going to go ahead through here and we're going to rename all of our assets. So ball underscore 01. All you got to do is highlight, select, and then just type in what you want. Makes it easier that way. You don't have to try and mess with any of the things. 2, 4, 5, F2, 6, F2, 7. And now you may be faster at this than I am, or have a faster way of doing this, but for me this works, and it's a little bit easier because I don't want the whole ball underscore 001 underscore 1 underscore 2 underscore 3 underscore 4 from just renaming all of them by selecting them. So I go in and I individually make the naming tags myself. Plus, it makes it easier to keep track of things whenever you need to look for some. You need to look for the 10th frame of the ball animation because something's not working right. Then you just come here and, oh, there's, here's ball 0010, that's ball frame 10, and you know exactly, where to look. You don't have to hunt down, well, which one was frame 10 again? You don't have to do any of that. And then we have the final one here, ball underscore 01016. Okay, so now we have them all. We can go back into the flipbook. Here's our flipbook. So now when we drag them all in, it'll go in sequential order, and apparently it still won't work like it's supposed to. Why is that? Let's make sure that everything is set to what it's supposed to be. 14, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Alright, so the naming is correct, but we got to go in here and look at something because something ain't right in our names. Okay. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay, so let's look. Let's open up the view thing. We got that one. We got that one. We got that one. Ah, okay, so there's one problem. So we are going to rename this one to ball 4. That's what it is. And we're going to rename... Okay, hold on. We got to rename this to something else first. 3-1. Okay, rename that to ball 4. And then ball 31, we're going to rename to ball 3. Alright, so now we got that. Just double checking, making sure everything here matches and it works the rest of the way. 11, 12, 13. Whoops, see? So here's another one. Okay, so this is F2. Somehow I opened a web page there. F2. This is actually 15, so I'll put 151 because I already have a 15. So, obviously, that's wrong. So, that is ball 13. Make sure 14 is still the same. 15. And then 16. Alright, so now all that is the same. It's correct. Okay. So we can close that out. And now we need to update this to make sure that we have 2, 3, 4, and then come down here because we changed 13 and we changed 15. So there, now we see our ball, it's rolling in a circle. Again, you see the wider marks around the outside, and yeah, like I said, I'm no good with using the cut and paste. But that also comes because of when we put in our values, if they sit directly on top of each other, even a small little bit along that border, it's going to copy that, and we're going to get the flat edges that you see popping up here throughout the time, or even around some of these other sides. So let's go ahead and save that because we have that now. Okay. So we can flip out of that. So we're going to convert a couple other things here to sprites. We want to make this a sprite. Everything works in sprites in this. Okay. And then we want to convert the background to a sprite. Alright. Whoops, not name it sprite, but convert it to a sprite. Let's see, platform underscore base, because I'm going to have a platform piece actually put in later that we've seen in the video, in the beginning of this tutorial. Now, with all of that, we're going to go ahead and stop here. When we come back, I will already have all of these animations here put into different animations for us to have and use for our idle animations. And then we'll make the character, get the background on, get the character on there, and get some basic movements for the character so that we can move it around the stage, jump up and down on platforms. I'll also import a platform, and we will be ready to rock and roll with that. Thank you.